Welcome to Harmonium LA, the podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Heedy Gandolfi, emotional wellness expert, founder of Harmonium LA, and published author. The world needs healing now more than ever. My goal is to bring you inspiring conversations, tips, and techniques that will help you build a sustainable healing toolkit. The Harmonium LA podcast is the only resource you will need to slow down, stop searching, and start healing. Welcome back to another episode of Stop Searching, Start Healing. So today's show is going to be really exciting and extremely inspirational. I know this to be true, even though we haven't recorded it yet, because my guest today is one of the most incredible women. She is inspirational, motivational, she is powerful, dynamic, and she is one of the reasons that I was able to really bring this show to fruition. She gave me the confidence, the motivation, and the kick up the backside, honestly, that I needed. And so it is an absolute pleasure to have her joining us today. And I know for sure that you will leave this episode with countless tools as to how you can really pull from this healing toolkit that we are creating for you. So let me give you a bit of a background about her, and then we will bring her in and let her do the talking. Christina Lecuyer is a former professional golfer turned confidence and success coach, motivational speaker, and host of the Decide It's Your Turn podcast. Through one-on-one coaching, mastermind programs, immersive events such as Decide It's Your Turn Live and Decide It's Your Turn The Retreat, Christina helps you shatter limiting beliefs, become more confident, and hold you accountable to creating and executing your most profitable and purposeful life. So, without any further ado, let's bring Christina into the show. Christina, thank you so much for joining us. Honestly, I am absolutely thrilled, honored, and I cannot wait for us to have this conversation today because I know it is going to be so inspiring for so many of our listeners today. And I'm just so grateful that you've taken time to join us.
I'm so excited that you asked me. You were so kind. You were like, do you think that you would mind doing this? And I was like, oh my God, I would be absolutely honored. And obviously, we're not talking about a traditional healing practice today, but there's just so much, I think that so many people will resonate between the two of us kind of chatting it up about our stories.
I think so. And that's the whole goal of this show. Honestly, it's like healing, it comes in many different forms. And so it's not necessarily just a hands-on traditional healing technique. It could be a conversation. It could be a word. It could just be a journey or a story or just something that somebody hears through these conversations that will help them make a decision to take the first step, just inspire them to really move forward with their healing, however that looks.
I so agree.
So thank you. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. So you and I met, it's not even 2 years ago now. Can you believe that? I mean, it feels like I've known you for
feels like forever. The world has sped up in the last few years. I'm like, oh my God, that was only 2 years ago.
I know, not even. And I remember we were in this mastermind. It was my very first mastermind with Chris and Laurie Harder. And, we were in this fabulous hotel up in West Hollywood, and it was the end of day one. And we were, on the roof deck and, conversations and drinks and whatnot. And I remember seeing you standing at the bar chatting to a group of people, and I was standing there. I was so nervous and really like a deer in the headlights, honestly. And I remember seeing you thinking, that woman looks amazing. But I was kind of in awe of you. I was like, I want to go chat with her, but I don't know, what am I going to talk to her about? Because I was still so new and such a novice in that whole arena. And so I remember wheedling my way over to the bar and kind of getting closer to you. And then we ended up just, hi, how are you? Just having a little connection. And we connected initially over golf, because of course you were a former professional golfer, and my son is a huge golfer, and so we connected about golf. That was how we first kind of started our conversation, and then of course it just flowed, and it just was so obvious and so apparent that we had so many other similarities that we could relate to and connect to, and that was the beginning of it, right?
Oh my gosh, I know. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you actually remember that story, because I do remember seeing you at that mastermind. It was the second time that I was involved in that particular mastermind with Chris and Laurie. They bring such an amazing group of humans together. And I love the fact that you said that you were super nervous the first time, because I encourage everyone, no matter what it is that you're doing, I always believe that like pushing yourself to do uncomfortable things is really where life begins, right? Every time we do something hard, every time we do something that's uncomfortable, we push ourselves to the next level. You know, a lot of the things that I talk about in my coaching practice now is building confidence, and confidence comes from doing hard things, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations all the time. And so, yes, that is how we met. We were having a sparkling water, I'm sure, on the rooftop in LA, and just really connected with you. I love you. I love your energy. And obviously that resonates so much with what you do now. And yeah, I just think, you know, it was meant to be that we ended up connecting the way that we did. And then when we really dove into our stories, we had so many things in common that, you know, are something that and one of the reasons why I love masterminds is because it is very much not a surface level conversation. Like when you go into those rooms, when you go into these spaces, it's like people are like, hi, okay, now tell me about your deepest, darkest family wound. Like that's literally like the first thing that people talk about. And for me, when I first entered this space, like probably 5 years ago, it was like the craziest thing ever for people to actually have real in-depth conversations. And you and I connected on many in-depth levels.
Yeah, we really did. And, you know, it's absolutely true what you say. It's about, you know, feeling that fear and doing it anyway and making that decision to change something, right? Because if you don't do that thing that scares you the most, you're just going to stay in that same space. You're not going to grow. You're not going to uncover parts of you that are maybe hidden so deep, but need to be released in order for you to really shine and serve your purpose on this planet.
Exactly. You know, like you and I pushing ourselves to do hard things you know, we both have a podcast. Mine is all about deciding it is your turn. And, you know, the power of a decision can absolutely change your life. And, you know, that is a healing thing as well, is when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone and make yourself do something that, you know, is something that you wouldn't typically do. Oh, there's so much power and there's so much healing in that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's so true, because your podcast, which is phenomenally successful, I was so excited for people to tune into that. But, you know, when we first met, that wasn't even on the table, right? It wasn't even the cards, the same as me. And so I just look at what has come in such a short space of time, and how the work that you do and now the work that I'm doing can be so healing for so many people. It's just phenomenal. So let's go to your story then, because you've done some incredible things. I mean, you know, when we first met, you were just about to embark on walking Mount Kilimanjaro to raise all those millions of dollars, right, for charity.
We raised $1 million,
which was phenomenal. So let's just talk about your journey, because going from professional golfer through to all the acts of service that you do now, and to now having this phenomenal coaching practice where you're supporting and uplifting other women.
Yeah, well, first of all, let's take it back just a pinch further. So I always kind of talk about my story. You know, people could look at my life now and be like, "Oh my gosh, you have such an amazing life. You're so lucky. You know, you're a professional golfer. You modeled. You did all these things." But you know, when I always say, two things happened to me when I was 18 years old. One, I got really good looking, and two, I got really good at golf. And so many people would, it's funny, but you know, so many people would look at that time in my life and think, "Oh my God, how amazing, how lucky, how great are you?" And those two things happening to me at 18 years old were lovely and wonderful, except for the fact that from 18 till about 27, 28, so almost a 10-year period, I became addicted to the external validation that came with being good at golf and being good looking. So, you know, I went to college, I played professional golf, I worked in the television industry, I did all the things. And for me, I was on this roller coaster of external validation, like, you're so pretty, you're so skinny, you're so smart, you hang out with all these people, you have a greatest job, like all the things. And I was basing my self-worth on what I did versus who I was and how I looked and how much money I had and all of the things. And it was a very, very dark place for me. You know, one of the things that we connect on is an eating disorder. I had a horrible eating disorder because I truly believed that if I kept getting skinnier, or if I kept staying a size 00, I would get the modeling jobs, I would get the television jobs, I would, you know, the guys would hire me to play golf, you know, with their clients. I had to look a certain way, and I had to be really good at golf in order to have success, because everyone told me, if you play on the LPGA tour, oh my God, you are going to have all the success in the world because you're a good looking blonde from America or Canada. You know, I'm a dual citizen, but you know, at the same time, like, that's just what I was told. Your life will be perfect. You will be happy. You will have all these things and life will be amazing if you do this thing. And so my whole life was concentrated on being good at golf and being good looking. And to me, that meant being really thin and just giving myself all of these horribly unrealistic expectations of what I had to do in order to attain that. And so for 10 years, I just hated myself. I always thought the next thing, the next added girl, the next dollar, the next job was going to make me happy. And it was 100% not the truth. And when I was about 27, 28, I kind of had this like come to Jesus moment where I knew that there was other people in life that were actually happy that had way less than me. And it was in that moment that I really decided I needed to do something in order to heal myself, in order to get myself out of the situation that I was in. And, put yourself in the story, no matter what your situation is. I think we all have these moments, or a lot of us who are, anyone who's probably listening to your podcast, who's on the journey of healing, anyone who's listens to my podcast, who's ready to decide that they need to do something different. I truly believe these type of people are the people that are obviously attracted to us, because they know that where they are, there is a journey to get them to where they want to be, which is probably closer to where you and I are now, because we've gone through the valley, we've gone through the healing. We are continuously doing that. Like, I am nowhere near where I need to be. But for me, it was, when I was, like I said, 27, 28, I knew that there was other people in the world that were happier with a lot less. So I had to figure out what that looked like. And for me, it was changing my mind. I truly believe, decide to change your mind, you change your life. And I read every book, I listened to every podcast, I went to every seminar, I hired all the coaches, I went to the masterminds, I did all the things. And slowly but surely, 10 years later, from 10 years of crap to 10 years of trying to really change my life, I've created a life and a business I absolutely fucking love every single day. Like, I'm so honored and blessed to say that this is my life. Some days it's an absolute shit show, and some days, it looks horrible and awful and it's hard and you want to run away and throw your computer in the pool and say, I'm done with this. But then you wake up the next morning because this is like what, I believe God put me on the planet to do.
Yeah. And I can relate to that so deeply on every single level, because, like you say, to the outside world, you have it all going on. You did back then when you were 18 and you do now, but people don't see the behind the scenes story of what it took to get you where you are today. And it didn't happen overnight. It is months and years of dedication and discipline and deciding and commitment to making that difference, to making that change, and feeling, no matter how scary it is, it's something that you need to do for you, but to benefit other people too. Because like you say, when you've walked in somebody's shoes, you know what that's all about. You know how hard that is, how difficult it is. And I can relate to you in that eating disorder situation down to a T. I mean, I was 18, 19 years old when I first, started with mine, and it was all stemming from being bullied because I was so overweight at school. I didn't go to college like you do and become sort of beautiful. I kind of went the other way around, and I was just, exceedingly overweight, exceedingly uncomfortable in my skin, a little bit awkward. And so I became the target for these bullies. And so in my mind, developing my eating disorder was, if I'm thinner, if I'm skinny, then I'm going to be liked. People will like me, and then I'll be accepted. And then it just becomes a roller coaster of not being able to come out of that space until such time that you realize this is not okay. Something has to change, because this cannot continue. And so I think for our listeners that have been through that or are going through that, this is just a key point, is to remind them to make that decision, but to believe in themselves that it can happen and it will happen.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. The 3 things that I say in my business now, in my coaching practice, is decision, faith, and action. Every single thing for me that has changed in my life, radically changed, that has been like for the positive, is the decision, the faith that, like, whether you believe God, source, energy, whatever it is, for me, it's God, but the faith that there is something greater, something better, something that is going to guide your journey. And then the action, how many people say, oh, I want this person, or manifesting is a huge word. I love the word manifesting, but I believe that there's a big difference between saying something and deciding it and have unwavering faith. But the step that I think a lot of people miss is the action part. You can say things all you want, but you have to do your part. I always say, I do my part, God does his part. And, forgetting from where you were and where I was took a lot of decision, a lot of faith, and a lot of action. And when you have those 3 things, I think you can change anything and everything. And like you said, yeah, you wanted to be loved and accepted. Same thing as me. I mean, that's what everyone does. And it doesn't matter if it's, eating disorder, drug addiction, sex addiction, whatever it is that you've got. I mean, most people are doing it to numb the pain of not feeling love. Like overall, people, human beings want to feel loved, appreciated, accepted, whatever. But when you boil it down, it's love. I wanted to be loved as a human. And I felt like that's how I was getting my love, was getting the jobs, the contracts, the money, the opportunities.
Yeah. All these external influences, which actually don't give you what you really need. You've really got to come to yourself, and you've got to, and it sounds so cliche, but because everybody's saying you have to start by loving yourself, because the minute that you do that, everything else in your environment will change. And taking that action is crucial, because I believe you very much, in as much as once you make that decision to do something, God or the universe or source, whatever you believe, will support you in that decision. But if you're going to sit on the fence, the longer you sit on the fence, the more splinters you're going to get in your backside, and the slower things are going to manifest, because you have to commit, you have to be all in. And when you take that step and you make that jump, you will be supported, but you have
to. Oh, 100%. One of our girlfriends, Lori Harder, she always says indecision is still a decision. I remember I was recording a podcast with her, and that's exactly what she said. And I was like, bravo, hallelujah, amen. Like, it's indecision is still a decision. And for those of your listeners who are thinking, okay, like, how do I actually love myself? Because I mean, let's be honest, when you're in the midst of that, you hate yourself, let alone love yourself. I don't care what it is, like, you really do not like yourself. And so perhaps someone's asking themselves, well, how do I go absolutely hating myself to loving myself? Well, y'all, I am that person. Let me be honest with you, because I absolutely hated myself. I was so mean to myself. Like, I would never treat anything on the planet the way I treated myself. And so how does someone get from where they were to where I am now? Like, I truly love myself. Like, internally, I really love myself. I like my life. I'm very grateful for everything that I have, and I wouldn't trade my life with anyone. So how do I do that? And how does someone do that? And I will tell you, it is the long game strategy, but how you initially start is every single day you make one small decision. You take one small action. So many people, especially in the online space or whatever it is, a lot of people look at people's highlight reels and think, I could never do that. Let me be honest with you. 10 years ago, I could never do half the shit I do today. But 10 years ago, it had to start with one small decision. It had to start with one hard thing. It had to start with building that confidence. I believe confidence is a muscle. And the only way to build a muscle over time, you're like one of the fittest people I know. Look at you. Well, guess what? You've done how many now classes in Soul Cycle? 2,000?
Oh, no, not quite. About 820-ish.
820. But you know what I mean? Like 820, you're almost at 1,000. Like, the reason why you look the way that you do, the reason why you've had what you've had, is because you show up every single day building that confidence. And that's the reason why I'm so confident. That's the reason why I went from absolutely hating myself to really, truly liking myself. And I don't even look close to as good as I used to look, but I really like myself today because it started with a small decision every single day.
And one of the things you mentioned there is gratitude. And I know you are a huge believer of gratitude, as am I, every single day. So talk to us about that.
Absolutely. No, totally. Gratitude will change your life. If you do not have gratitude for something, my God, you will find everything that there is wrong with the world. I think my hope is that everyone on the planet just listened to this one little part on this podcast today, and it would change our world. I mean, we're so obsessed with everything that's wrong. Let's get so unbelievably obsessed with everything that's right. And I do not give a shit how much money you have, what you look like, whatever. Everyone has something to be grateful for. And it's so interesting. I tell people all the time, like, especially people who are new to gratitude. And to me, it's such a foreign, like, subject to be like, you're new to gratitude. Like, what do you mean?
How do you know this?
I know. I'm like, oh my God, what rock have you been under? But like gratitude will change your frigging life. It changed mine because, I even did a podcast with a client last week, and she said that one of the biggest changes in her life she used to say, I hate my life. I hate my life. I hate my life. How many people do you know that say that? I hate my job. I hate my life, whatever. If you switch that every single day for a year, you would be blown away by what would happen. And I'm talking, you guys, I do my gratitude every single day. I've actually changed from writing gratitude every single day. Like I probably for 7 or 8 years, I wrote in my gratitude journal every day. But now what I've switched doing for the last, I think about 2 years, is I do not allow my feet to hit the ground without saying a minimum of 10 things. So like literally my alarm goes off and then I just lay there and I'm like, I just start telling myself like all the amazing things. And what's really cool is a lot of people would think, perhaps looking at our lives or our situations, they'd be like, oh my gosh, you have so much to be grateful for. Yeah, I do. But it's so interesting that the things that are always on my gratitude list, like the craziest, tiniest, smallest things that most people would, every single one of us have access to. Like, I am so grateful every single day for the sunrise. Like, to me, there's nothing better. I am so grateful for going for a walk and like hearing the birds and smelling spring right now. Oh my God, it's like the greatest smell ever here in Arkansas. This is where I live, and like the pollen is out. Like, I just love it. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with like the smell of my husband. I'm obsessed with coffee. Like, I am so grateful every single morning for my coffee. I'm grateful for my clients. It just changes everything. And so if you're looking for one healing practice that every single person on the planet has free access to, is gratitude. What you focus on, you find. If you are like the most negative person ever, trust me, you will find all the negative shit in the world. But if you practice gratitude, it'll change your life.
Oh, absolutely. Hallelujah to that. Amen. Because it really does. And like you say, it's free. Like, it really is free, and it really does. It costs nothing. And you can always find something to be grateful for. But it is about changing your mindset, right? And changing that belief system, that thought pattern, and cleaning our mind and really changing what's going on subconsciously, so that then starts to permeate through into our real day lives. And that's where you can attest to. I mean, a lot of your your events, your retreats, your coaching is all about mindset. That's what you base a lot of your work on, right?
Absolutely. Because if you have the most positive, I will always find an answer, gratitude filled, positive mindset business, there's always a way to yes. Hiking Kilimanjaro is something that you said when we had first met. I was about to hike Kilimanjaro, and I did it for a children's hospital in Canada. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And to say that I was nervous before I started would be an understatement. I literally signed up and said yes, and was on the mountain within 1 month. Like, literally had never slept in a tent before in my life, ordered everything on the to buy list besides like toilet paper and like literally like tennis shoes on Amazon in like 2 weeks. It was literally one of the hardest things ever, but it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And not only because it was like hiking Kilimanjaro, but one of the coolest parts about it was the 12 people that I was on the mountain with. And I became really good friends with this guy named Todd. And one of the things that he and I broke off one day, and we were just hiking as the two of us, and we talked for hours. And it's so amazing how deep you can go with people on a mountain, like in 2 seconds. It's like the greatest thing ever. We're like crying within 30 minutes. It's amazing. It's right up my alley. But one thing that he said to me is very, very successful human being. And he has something he calls PMA, positive mental attitude. And he always says that there's a way to yes. Everything that has ever manifested in his life that he's created is because he's always found a way to yes. So it's like, whatever the heck it is that you want in your life, in your business, there's always a way to yes. And if you believe that, if your mindset is, there is no way in hell this won't work, I will always be finding a way to yes. I will always have a positive mental attitude. Even if it doesn't happen the way that you think it should happen, it usually happens.
And it'll happen the way that it's supposed to happen, right? Because the way that we create it in our minds is, this is how it has to be. You know what? It doesn't matter, because the universe will deliver exactly how it's supposed to be. But I love what you just said, because it reminds me, becoming a yes person. And so I remember hearing something a while ago, and it was like, instead of, when people ask you things, or when you have a decision to make, instead of being in that camp of, oh no, I can't do that, oh no, I'm not competent, I'm not capable, I don't have the tools or the capacity to do that, become a yes person. Start saying yes, and just see how that shifts everything. So the next time that you're asked to go somewhere or do something, instead of saying, oh no, I can't, because just go. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And just go with it, because the things that will happen as a result of doing that are life-changing sometimes, just as you experienced.
Oh, it's so true. I actually sent this book to a client most recently. It's called A Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes, the writer. Yeah, like exactly what you're talking about. She said for forever and ever, she said that she didn't have time, she didn't have the space or whatever in her life, but for a year, she said yes to everything. And I recently had a woman on my podcast. She's a former client, and she's amazing, but she lived in Los Angeles. She had a very successful therapy practice. She's a licensed marriage family therapist, and she literally shut down her thriving 6-figure practice, divorced her husband, and said yes to every opportunity there was. And, a short time later, she is now living in Paraguay. She's the most happiest human you'll ever meet. She's remarried to a Paraguayan man. She makes great money each month in Paraguay as an online therapist, still based in California. And she just said yes to everything. Like, no matter what it is, she always said yes. But the minute she switched her mindset to, I will always say yes, it changed her life.
Beautiful. And just following that intuition, that inner knowing, making that decision to do something, which to some people might seem absolutely bonkers. Like, why would you do this? Why would you make those decisions? But following that inner knowing, that inner wisdom, and trusting that it is going to lead you where you need to be. And it's not about all the bells and whistles on the outside. It really is coming from within. And when that changes, then everything on the outside will shift as a result.
I think that that's super important to say as well, is that, something that I don't talk often about is, before I really started changing my mind, changing my life, I always had stomach and back problems for years and years and years and years. I had stomach and back problems. I remember one year I went to like every stomach doctor that there was. They gave me upper scopes, lower scopes, MRIs, all the things. There was quote unquote nothing wrong with me. I definitely believe a lot of it was from my mind, like 100%. I do think that there was a few things that I probably needed to change. And obviously for years of treating my body like dog shit, I think that had a big part of it. But it's amazing to me now how very rarely do I get stomach aches, and very rarely does my back go out anymore unless I'm under a very high stress situation. So I know a lot of your listeners are listening about healing and what practices there is and how can they, truly heal themselves. And I do believe there is such magic in healing your mind, healing your thoughts, healing your heart. I don't have stomach problems and back problems very often anymore. Funny that I never had surgery. I have never taken any pharmacy pills in my whole entire life, prescription medicine. Like, I've probably taken 5 pills my whole entire life, including like Tylenol. I just don't do it. And sure enough, those issues very rarely happen anymore. And I truly do believe it's the power of changing your mind, changing your thoughts, changing what you focus on.
100%. And you just really nailed it for me, honestly, because the work that I do now, I work with the emotional body and with emotions and with mindset in a different respect to the way that you do. But all disease stems from the mind. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, where you are, what you do. That's the truth. And it's from, unresolved trauma, the emotional body being under such high alert and such a stressed space because of traumas and the mindset and the thoughts that we're telling ourselves. All disease manifests in the mind, and it's up to us. If we can clean our mind, then we can clean our health. And all emotional imbalances, all mental imbalances will manifest in the physical, but it is as a result of trauma and the belief system that we are telling ourselves, that subconscious tape that is going round and round in our head. And so in order to really heal ourselves in the physical, we have to heal ourselves in the emotional and the mental. And that's exactly where it starts. And you're testament to that with exactly what you just said.
Absolutely. It's 100% the truth. And, it's definitely, sometimes I definitely believe that, Western medicine is something that we all need at some point in times. But I also believe too, that the massive amount of healing practices, including harmonium and all of the above, are magical in creating a life and a a more calm, healthy state for ourselves. I mean, you and I still, like, that's the one thing that people always say to me is like, you know, how do I fix myself? I'm like, hi, I've been on this journey for 10 years and I'm far from close to like, like I will die. That's when the whole fixing myself comes to a conclusion. But until that time, I have to be open. I have to be willing to continuously learn, continuously be able to heal myself. You know, I still go to therapy. I'm still working on, you know, all sorts of things. It doesn't mean that, you know, I'm not fantastic at what I do, but at the same time too, like I always want to improve myself, because you and I both know that when you heal yourself, or when you're in the journey of healing yourself, it leads to just such a much better life.
It does. And also exactly that. So, you know, for our audience, when they're listening and thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be easy, I just have one session here and one session there. It's absolutely not that. It is a journey. And every single step of that journey, you're uncovering a different part of yourself that you didn't even maybe realize existed. And you have to keep going through it. And it will, every single thing that you do is benefiting you. And it's about, like this, the whole point of, you know, bringing this show to fruition was to allow people to create a toolkit of healing techniques, tips, modalities, inspiration, whatever it is, so that they can pull from as they move through this journey of healing, because we're all on it. You know, it never ends. It is continuous. And there is, you know, you just on and on and on. And ultimately, yeah, you know, you want to die happy. You want to know that when you leave this planet, you have done everything in your power to have lived the best life, to have given back, and to have been of service to others, so that you could truly, you know, feel like you've achieved what you were put here to do.
I love that so much. And something that you said that I think we really need to highlight here is, you know, when you make the decision, you know, again, everything comes for me, come back to decisions, but when you make the decision that you are going to take this practice and do whatever it is that you decide to do, make a decision that you're in it. You know, my mom and I are in therapy together, and she called me after like the first like 2 or 3 sessions, and she's like, I just don't know. Like, I just thought we would just like talk about a couple of things and solve the problem. And like, obviously she's new to this world, but I just said to her, I said, Mom, here's the thing. I have decided that I'm in it for as long as it takes. So if you can change your mindset and say, we've decided this is now a thing. I'm here until I'm here. If it takes 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 years, 20 years. If you make a decision and you just say until, then you're all good. Like I think so many people come into something like, let's buy a 10 session package to Harmonic. Well, sometimes it takes 100. Sometimes it takes 2. But if you make the decision that that's the decision and you're in it until, oh my gosh, you'll probably find a lot more healing a lot faster, because you've made the decision that it's going to work no matter what. And that's the decision, and put a little less stress on it. So for me, it's just like, I'm in this. This is my life. I'm consistently working on myself. There's no finish line, and I'm good with it. And it makes the mental part of it so much easier.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that one of the things I admire about you especially is that you're always in it for the long game. You know, you're like, this isn't going to be, it's not a quick fix. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to think big picture. You have to think long game. And that's in everything, whether that's business, in finance, in healing, whatever it is, in your emotional, mental, physical fitness, you have to be in it for the long game and know there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be peaks and troughs, but you just have to realize that you got to keep going regardless.
I love that. You know, I was recording a podcast with a guy named Omar Elatar. He has a podcast called The Passionate Few. It was really, really good. And he used an example of the richest person in the world at the time was Jeff Bezos with Amazon. And he said for a really, really long period of time, Jeff Bezos was the poorest person on the planet. He had the most amount of debt, like billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of debt. Well, if he would have looked at his journey in the beginning and said, well, this is never going to work. I am the poorest person, like all of the things, Amazon would have never become what it is today. And I don't care what you think about Amazon, good, bad, ugly, whatever. It's just an example. But his mindset was long game strategy. I may be the poorest person on the planet for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. But at some point in time, this pendulum is going to switch. And now, sure enough, he's the richest person. And I think that that is just a really great analogy of playing the long game. You don't quit when something doesn't work right off the bat. Sometimes you're going to be the poorest person on the planet. But at some point in time, that pendulum is going to switch. And sure enough, you become the richest person on the planet. So it's just the analogy of like, if you're in it, stay in it until, and then chances are it'll happen a lot easier.
Oh, definitely. It really will. And that's it right there. I think, it's, you got to be in it to win it, and you have to stay the mile and work at it for the long haul, because it's not, where you start is never where you're going to end up. Right. With anything.
Absolutely, for sure. And I do think that something to kind of point out as well for your listeners is that, like, there's so many beautiful lessons on the journey, on the healing journey. There's going to be some like really hard moments, but I truly believe too that, like, if you have a faith in a higher power, I believe that, like, a lot of times we believe it's going to be so good, and we put like exactly what we think good means, right? Like we put it in this little box and it's just going to be like, that's going to be good. But I believe that, like, God's like laughing at that. He's like, oh my gosh, like, you of little mind, like this could be such an abundance. And, I have such a great example of that. I used to think when I was in my golf career, I used to think that this television job that I wanted so badly, I was like, oh my God, if I get that, like, life is going to be so amazing. And I think about that now, and like, it would literally like make my heart stop. I'd be like, oh my God, that would be the worst thing that could have possibly happened, because I wouldn't have this. Right. And so I think that that's just a beautiful thing to remember as well, is oftentimes we forget, we have such a little awareness of what it could be if you're willing to start your healing practice, if you're willing to play the long game. Oftentimes God is just going to show you like such better than you could have possibly ever imagined.
Exactly. Yeah. So not why is this happening to me, but how is this happening for me, is just the best way, I think, to look at every single experience to propel you forward. So let's talk about you decided you were going to change. That was it. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so now, of course, your brand and your practice and all of the things decide it's your turn. So talk to us about that and the coaching and what you offer to help women and support these amazing women.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely have, my brand is the Decide It's Your Turn brand. I truly do believe decision, faith, and action will change your life. I'm very blessed and honored to say I have such a diverse group of clients. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, if someone ever joins one of my masterminds or my one-on-one coaching program or my network or whatever it is, I think a lot of people find it interesting what a diverse group of people that I work with. But overall, every single person that I work with knows that they want something more than what they have. And in that regard, whether it's the confidence, whether it's the business, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is, most people are attracted to me because they know that I was at one point in my life, perhaps not having this abundant, amazing life that I do have now. And they want the abundant, amazing life. And a lot of times people don't feel confident or worthy or have the strategy on how to get from A to B. And I provide that for my clients and my people. And I'm so honored and blessed to be able to do that.
Oh yeah. And I can attest to all of that because, you were so instrumental with helping me get this podcast off the ground, listening to you and talking to you and having your support and, your just unwavering support, and just, you could do on and on and on. I mean, honestly, I could wax lyrical about you and just the way that you are and how inspiring that you really are. But what's your biggest fear?
Time is my biggest fear on the planet. I have a fear of running out of time. And it's so interesting. I was asked this question before, and immediately my answer is time, because for a big portion of my life, which makes me want to tear up, for a big portion of my life, I didn't know if I wanted to live. Like, that's kind of where I was. And now I think about my life and I'm like, time is the greatest asset on the whole entire planet, because I have so much that I want to do, whether that is literally go for a walk with my husband or travel the world or work with more people or spend more time with family and friends and all the things. Like, time is the greatest asset on the planet. And it's the thing that scares me the most, is running out of it. I'm not afraid to die. Like, I know where I'm going, but I also don't want to go anytime soon.
Well, that's it. I mean, I just get emotional just listening to that, because it's the truth, and I think we've all been in those dark places. I know I have too. And, to look back and say, now that I'm in this space and I'm living this incredible life and I'm doing all the things that I could have ever imagined and more, I don't want that to end. And there's just too many things. Life is too good for it to, 100%. I think that is just beautiful.
Thank you.
I am so thrilled that you took time today. And you're so first of all, you have an amazing podcast, Decide It's Your Turn, which is just phenomenal. You've had some inspiring guests, some incredible guests. You're just there, you're showing up, you've got the content, you've just got all of this amazing wisdom to share with people. You have your retreats, you have your one-on-one coaching, you have just a plethora of just amazing tools that people can pull from. And like we said, they're not even something that you have to pay for. They can be free. Just tuning in, listening to your podcast is free. And people are going to listen to that. They're going to get something from every single show that they listen to, that you put out there, because it is so inspiring and so phenomenal. So Christina, I'm so grateful for you to join us today. Thank you so much. And we'll put all of your details, all of your contacts into the show notes, and I will just look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you, love. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I truly hope that you enjoyed the show, and there is at least one thing that you can take away from today's episode that will help you build that sustainable healing toolkit. It would mean the absolute world to me if you would subscribe to the show, give it a 5-star review, and share this or any of the other episodes with somebody that you feel could really benefit by listening. I look forward to seeing you next time.